Okay. Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever time zone you guys have joined in. Thank you for making this time to join the session. My name is Tintu Jacob Shaji, and I go with Tintu. I am a moderator for this meetup event, and I am a MuleSoft leader for Cleveland, Ohio region. So, if you guys are interested in giving a topic, giving a speak on a topic, then you feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn with your amazing ideas and concepts, and we can take it from there. That's that. And coming to my technical introduction side, I have close to 5+ years experience in integration space and API platforms. And currently, I'm working as an engineer at Twitter. That is my quick introduction. And well, most of us have worked in environments which, have to deal with large data movements, maybe within systems to systems or from external systems as well. So how do we do that? And our speaker today, Shankar Badam, has an amazing solution to deal with such large data movements. And having said that, handing over this session to Shankar Bhattam.
Oh, yeah. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining and taking your time to meet here. So, my name is Shankar, but for some reason I couldn't join with my account, so I joined as a Prasanna Guduru. Please bear with me for that. And Tintu, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, good morning, all.
Hey everyone, good morning.
Oh yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, so I'm a MuleSoft consultant. From past 4 years, I've been working as a MuleSoft consultant, and I work for clients like First Hertz, and currently I'm working at Neuralink, which is a product-based company. They develop performance-based dashboards. So they have log monitoring systems, log monitoring alerts. This kind of data they develop. They're in the core side of the IT. So here we are using MuleSoft to migrate some of their data from their Salesforce Classic Arc version to the Salesforce Lightning version, and they do have different data migration projects. So we have used pretty much batch processing module here in variety of ways. So I have gathered a lot of information from it. So I just wanted to share and uh, share my knowledge to the whole MuleSoft community. So thank you for joining all of you. And I just want to quickly share the session because it's a big topic, and I just want to cover most of it, whatever I can. Uh, okay, right, Tintu? Yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. Let me share my screen. I hope everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So this is Tintu, the organizer, and the one who gave me this opportunity to share the experience. And yeah, myself, Shankar Badam, I have 4+ years of experience currently working at Neuralink. And let me quickly dive into the batch processing. So this batch processing, it's not a new concept to the software industry. It's been there for a while. In the mid 1900s, this guy Herman, who started experimenting with the tabloid machines, uh, sharing it into the different batches and processing it. So from there it started, and the evolution has begun, and almost pretty much every industry is using it, even from the food processing industries and even to the IT industries. Everywhere the batch processing is common, and the building blocks are pretty much same. So processing in different chunks, take the high volume, do the repetitive jobs, provide the statistics. So these building blocks are same. Even that goes for the same in the Mule. So let's see what are the possible options that we have in the MuleSoft for when it comes to the batch. We have two other options, the for each and the parallel for each. Even in for each, we can do the batch processing, batch jobs, but it's like we have to collect the data into different like based on the number. Let's say we have 1,000 records, and if we want to collect the data into 200 chunks, so it will go as a five times it will iterate into the for each loop, and each time it goes as a collection, and it will hold the 200 records. It won't do the one-on-one element. It processes iteratively so that we can't utilize a complete asynchronous reactive programming approach in the for each. Whereas a parallel for each, it's I would actually call it as a mini version of the batch processing, because it takes a collection of elements and it processes it split the message into collection parts and process them in the parallel and separate routes. Inside the parallel for each, we can add a choice router, and we can accept a policy, we can accept a condition based on the route that we provide, and it will process in the same fashion, but in the parallel routes. But here is the most important part. MuleSoft has a batch processing, which is a very powerful, efficient, and it can do lot of operations. As I said, like we have migrated Salesforce Classic Arc data into Salesforce Lightning, so we have utilized this batch process and uh, upsetted many records, like millions of records at the single go. But it takes some time, though. It depends on the core IO, everything that we have, and the number of threads that it can perform. So the metrics may change. So, but the batch process does the job. It splits the message into each individual records and perform the action upon the each record. And finally, in the report phase, it will tell like how many records processed, how many records failed. So that is how pretty much batch processing looks. So here are the phases in the batch processing. Like this diagram shows, the first input phase here is the process and the recording phase. The input phase happens by default. Like in the Mule 4, Mule 3, we used to have input phase, but in the Mule 4, the input, it accepts like um, and it loads and dispatches the messages into the process phase. And the process phase, it will where we actually process each chunk of the records and complete it. In the on-complete phase, we provide the report. When it comes to load and dispatch phase, the input phase actually happens under the hood. It accepts in the Mule 4. It accepts Java-based collections, JSON-based, and the XML-based collections. After the loading, it will create a job instance and starts finishing the loading process and starts the execution of the process phase. And then rest of the flows continue in the async fashion. So what does this mean? Like I just wanted to show you with an example. Like here is how a batch looks. A simple batch looks. This is a batch job where we have uh, the define collection, and this is the batch steps where actually the processing happens. We can add multiple batches here, and this is the incomplete phase. If you have something like this, and when this flow is triggered, if there are any components outside of it, once this flow starts, it starts in asynchronous fashion. So whatever the components executes after that, it will go and it will execute it. And this goes in the asynchronous fashion. A new thread will be spinned here, and it will execute in a separate module. And then comes the process phase. The process phase may contain one or more batch steps. MuleSoft has a very good documentation on the batch processing, but I just wanted to rephrase each terminology that it takes. A record is a actual single record that it actually accepts. A record block would be like based on the job size that we provide, it accumulates all the records into the record block. Let's say if we have a collection of 1,000 records, and a record block would be like based on the job size. If you provide the job size of 100, it will build the 10 record blocks, each consisting of 100 records. But remember, like this collection of the record blocks holds the records in random way. Like the first record block would have numbers from or maybe from the 900s, and the last record block of the batch would can consist of the first record. So remember that record blocks holds the data, and collected the records into in random way. And these records blocks are processed parallelly in each batch step. Let's say if you have 10 record blocks, and based on the capacity, all those 10 blocks enter into the batch step 1 and processes them in parallel. And once it finishes, it backs into this queue, and then again it goes into the batch step 2, and so on and so forth. Like if there is a block, if there is a record block 1, it is not guaranteed that it will again go into the block 1, record block 1. Once a message is completed in the batch step 1, it comes back into this queue, and before entering into the batch step 2, it again collects a record block. So the record blocks are again formed and processes in the parallel fashion. That's how it actually works. So records in the record blocks are passed sequentially in all the batch steps. Each record internally keeps track of the data. What do you mean by this? Like if there is a record that is failed in the batch step 1, so it will come into the queue with the metadata of failed status. So whenever you want to process this subsequently in the another batch steps, if um, if you have an accept policy for only failures, so those failure records go into those batch steps and executes in the parallel way again. Yeah, all at end of all this, the batch job instance completes. What does it mean by a batch job instance? Batch job instance is something when the batch job kicks in and loads and finishes into the a batch, it will create a batch of instance with an ID. So that can be considered as a batch of instance. Please also keep in remember that there can be scenarios that a batch job can be triggered from a different sources. So multiple batch job instances will be created in that scenario. So the concurrent execution of the record may make them out of the order in the batch uh, when a batch aggregator is involved. Let's see more about the batch aggregator. It allows us to aggregate the data and upsert into the external systems or insert do any operations that we want to do. It will basically wrap the final element in the batch step. Like if there are two ways batch aggregator can hold. There are different options. One is to enable the streaming. The other is to have the fixed size. If you have a fixed size and let's say 100 records you want to hold in the batch aggregator, those 100 records will be upsetted into the um, like if you want to send it into the Google Contacts, those 100 records will go and update into the Google Contacts API maybe. So this is a mutable collection. So inside the batch aggregator, even if you want to perform another operations like use a transfer message and modify the data, it is allowed to do inside the batch aggregator. As I mentioned, like there are two different options: the fixed size and the streaming. Um, when you click on the batch aggregator, let me show. Let's take this. The aggregator size is 100. So after processing the 100 records, the batch aggregator holds 100 and then insert it into this store. If you want to enable the streaming, the batch aggregator goes into the disabled because this is a mutually exclusive. Only one of the options can be utilized. When the streaming is enabled, if you are whatever the parallel record blocks, like as I mentioned, like if you take 1,000 records, so there will be 10 record blocks executes at the same time. So when you enable the streaming, you have to make this consideration while you are using the streaming. All those 1,000 records might go into this batch aggregator because as per the documentation and as per what I have experimented, like all the messages goes into this batch aggregator at the end of the process. So ideally, it is better to have the control over the keep the batch aggregator size. So that is it on the batch of fixed size and the streaming. there are different phases like in the batch steps you have different options. The like expression when you want to evaluate it to true, those records will be processed. Like this is the batch step one. So all the records will be processed because the accept policy is all. And when it comes here, uh, yeah, you can add that too. But in the batch step 3, I have added only failures. So what does it mean? Like I intended to fail some of the records in the batch step 2, and only those fail records from the batch step 2 allow into the batch step 3 and execute here. If you want to accept a policy, like you can add something like this. Um, payload dot ID is less than 10. So this will evaluate to true only for the records that are below the 10. Only those records enter into this block along with the accept policy. So this is another good option if you want to have the really control over the elements that you want to process in the batch steps. There are three different policies: no failures, only failures, and all. The no failures is a default one. It takes only the successful records processed from the previous batch step. The only failures is like only will try to collect the records that are failed, and we can do any reporting. We can add this for the reporting purpose or other ways. And all will take care of all the records that are processed in the first batch step or the subsequent batch steps. And also keep in mind that uh, the batch step 2 can be only executed once batch step 1 completes. And similarly for the batch step 3, upon completing of the first record block, all the elements, when it completes the batch step 2, then only it can enter the batch step 3. So that way, uh, that is the actual building block of the batch processing in Mural. So that will enable all the records to process and completes its scope. And as you all know, like most of the guys, like depending on the batch size, the batch has usually has 16 threads that works in parallelly to complete the job. Most of them are CPU intensive and CPU IO. These are the threads. There won't be CPU light threads that can be executed in the batch job because these are all extensive high intensity jobs. Depending on the threads, depending on the volume, more threads could get work. I want to demo this to you and how this batch works in how this threading model works in the batch. In the interest of time, I have created an application. Let me quickly explain what it does. It takes an array with the elements that we want to provide. So it prepares a collection and it basically gets a thread name. Based on the thread name, I have performed an action grouping it together and sending the data into the object store. And then I retrieved again back here to see what is the thread when I prepared the batch size of 100. And even the batch aggregator has 100 records. Now, I have put 200, but I'll make it to 100 just to not to have any confusion. But whatever the size that you provided in the batch aggregator, this is the final limit that a batch aggregator can hold, no matter the batch size that you define here. Only it is deployed right now. It is still deploying. Let's see more. So what do you want to what I wanted to accomplish from this is that I wanted to show you like depending on the batch size, depending on the number of collections that I sent. So how each thread gets a work inside of it, and how it is performed in the batch. So let me One second, guys. So, see, I have put a batch size of 99. Sorry. See, there are 1,000 records, 100 records that are processed. What is the thread that got executed? This Uber 15. And I forgot to mention, as I told you, like there are CPU intensive threads, CPU light, and CPU IO. That is in 4 Mule 4.2.0. But in the Mule 4.3.0, they have combined all these threads and make it into the Uber pool. This is a pool that releases the threads, and it is most advanced now compared to the 4.2.0, because they were able to uh, have a limited on the by splitting the collection of the pools. Now they have merged it. So if you see, all the 100 records not executed on the same thread, but this is not the case for all kind of scenarios. If you want to put more limit, let's see, there are 10 different threads that got executed. All have performed a similar number of records, processed similar number of records inside the batch. But if you see, the Uber 17 has processed in the first batch, it executed 15 records. In the it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It executed in the 6 record blocks, and performed different number of times. It took up the load, but collectively at the end of the time, so each thread got 100 amount of work, 100 units of work. But this is very optimized because of the Uber pool that they are having in the 4.3.0. But if you want to put more limit, this is like 1 lakh records. Let's see how it processes, each thread processes. It is taking time to execute 1 lakh records. Yeah, I think it, it perform the action. If you see, this payload size is 100,000 records, and there are 17 distinct threads that are participated in the batch job to complete its action. If you see, the Uber 17 thread is executed 11,500 times, whereas the 13 is 900 times. So like that, there are 17 threads that participated, that shared the work to collectively complete this job. If you see, only 3 threads are utilized in each batch. This is average, but the maximum number of threads that are utilized in the batch is 9 threads. At most, it can go to the 16, but it won't go beyond the 16, depending on the work and depending on the batch size, and depending on the amount of work in each record that it can hold. The number of times max threads used is 6. Um, so there are 6 different blocks that have used 9 threads in the 9 threads, and number of times the minimum threads used. What is the minimum thread? It's just one. So any one of the thread would have come only one time. So it purely depends like how threads behaves. But one common thing is like depending on the amount of the whole records, the number of threads would participate in the action, and each record can be executed in multiple blocks, and at most we will have the 16 threads. I hope these have given some insight into how the threading model actually work inside the batch. And coming to the presentation, these are some statistics I've gathered in the same way. uh, how variables actually propagate inside of it. The way when the variable is created inside a batch step, it will have it will not be available. It will be available in subsequent batches. If you create a variable in the first batch step, it will be available in the batch step two as well. But not these variables are accepted inside the aggregator and even on the on complete phase. The variables created before the batch scope are accessible inside all the batch phases. I wanted to share one information about the batch job instances. Like, uh, I think we are running out of time, so I just quickly want to share all the attributes that it can hold. So name on the batch job, what are the configurable attributes? So the name, you can put anything. The max fail records, when you keep it like -1, it accepts any number of failure records and it can process. By default, it won't accept any failures. The scheduling strategy, by default, it is ordered sequential. So like whenever there are two systems trying to access this batch job, let's say if you have a workday system and the NetSuite, both systems are trying to upsert their employee feed into the Salesforce. So when they call this batch up at the same time, the ordered sequential ensures whatever the system that accesses it first, based on the created timestamp, it will go and finishes the job. The round robin, whereas the round robin, it ensures like both jobs can run in parallel. And the job instance id, you can actually change it. This job instance id can be useful whenever you want to correlate the job to the backend systems. If you want, while you're upsetting the records into the Salesforce, you can send this badge up to the Salesforce, and you can actually correlate like how many records failed, how many records processed. You'll be able to know. The batch block says this is 100. MuleSoft has recommended to use 100, but if you have each record size of like in the if it is in kbs, maybe you can use the same, but if it is in mbs, it will occupy a lot of space. So the ideal recommended scenario is if you have inside of the each record, if the size is more, put the batch size less. If the size is less, go for the maximum record block size. If it only consists of two fields in a JSON, so that is very less amount of data. So you can even put 1000 or 2000. You can actually experiment on it. We have utilized 2000 as well. That worked fine for us when the record size is very less. And the max concurrency, this can be only used when the scheduling strategy is round robin. It means that like there are three systems trying to access. If you put the max concurrency to, only two jobs run in parallel. The other one waits and executes after it. And the target variable is like whatever you have from the on complete phase, we can store it into the target variable. Uh, yeah, that is pretty much about it that I wanted to share. I have covered all the attributes that are required. So, and the batch complete on complete phase. Yeah, I wanted to tell something about this. In the on complete phase, as you see, as you see earlier, like it loads, it gives all the statistics like how many number of records, how many number of records failed, successful, etc. But keep in mind that sometimes if you want to upsert something into the, I'll show you this scenario. I have created this table. So there are 1000 records. I'll try to truncate the table. See, it has created 1000 records because there are no failures in it. And even the incomplete phase shows the same. As the successful and there are no failure records because there is no exception. I've created another test case like to check if something fails in between. I will truncate the table just to not have any collision. So there are 0 records. Um, these endpoints takes 50 records, and five of them is going to fail. See, it shows. Um, second. So the idea is that I think there is some configuration changes I have to make here. The idea is that this aggregator inside the aggregator inside the database. So this only throws the bulk inserts throws only one error. Even if you want to insert the 50 records, it will throw only one error even if five of them failed. So in the incomplete fields, it shows that all the 50 records got failed. But if you go and check, 45 records will be existing in the database. So I just wanted to make sure, and it depends on the driver that you actually use uh, to fail all the records or pass whatever it is going to pass in a DB execute statement. So I just wanted to have a look and use the recommended approach for your solution. So this already explained like maximum failure records, scheduling strategy, max concurrency, record block size, and the batch of instance ID. You can actually create the batch of instance ID customized, but it has to be unique. If you want to use the same job instance ID, when it runs second time, it throws an error that it is already existing. So try to keep like a timestamp and try to keep a timestamp along with the whatever job ID that you want to use. Mule provides an exception stack trace only for the first occurrence of the each error. So inside a batch step, if there are 10 records fail with the same error, so it will only give the first instance just to log the performance. This I have already discussed. So yeah, in summary, use a batch of process basically large set of data, and batch of processes splitting it into the smaller chunks and functions into the batch stepwise, and configure the batch steps to accept policies to failure records can be processed in a batch step 2, and the processed records can successful can records can be reported or maybe not useful for the subsequent processing. Aggregate them. Use a batch aggregator whenever you want to use a batch aggregator, and have a strategy to handle all the failures. The scenario I showed you when the database component fails. So yeah, user reporting statistics in the incomplete phase. So that is pretty much about the batch processing in Mule. I know the time is less, the scope of the batch is very big, so I wanted to cover what I told little fast, just to cover all the components that we can put together.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation, Shankar. It was a good overview on batch processing and also, how the use of threads are, and with the live demo that really helped. I see there was two questions raised.
Mhm.
One by Ashok Kumar. I see, what is the maximum batch size we can assign? Do you have an answer for that question?
Maximum, I think we still have to experiment. We have experimented till 5,000. It worked fine, but the recommended approach, as I mentioned, is depending on the batch. Is depending on the each record size. Like if the record size is very huge, then you can go for the very less possible batch size. If the record
Right.
size is very less, you can go for the higher batch sizes. That will keep the less IO operations and give some more throughput.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and also since we have 16 threads, as you mentioned, we can configure the batch size accordingly, I guess. Okay, and I see another question by Rakesh Reddy that says, what is the default aggregator size?
Default aggregator size. Uh, I'm not sure about that, but probably it is same. Let me see when I drag a batch aggregator scope what it actually gives. It's not giving any default size. I think we have to keep it. Like it is throwing an error. Like we have to configure something from it. So yeah, the aggregator size can be anything. If it is streaming, it will it will end up taking all the records blocks and hold all the data. If it is aggregator size, it will only process. And I also wanted to mention something about the preserve mind tabs, which is not there in the 4.2.0. This is added in 4.3.0. It will it will keep using the existing mind types from the process phase.
Okay, nice. And yeah, we have one last question
Yeah.
from Harneet. Yeah, so the question goes like this: what if process hangs while executing a batch, and when restarted, it duplicates the data? How can we handle such scenario?
Yeah, maybe you can have another process that actually reads the data from the target system. Basically, we have to read the data from the target system to ensure there are no duplicates. Or you can have a mechanism that duplicate record throws on the server side. There are two possible ways I will think of.
Nice. Yeah, maybe we can. So Harneet, in the feedback forum, maybe we can send you more of the scenarios how to handle, or more of the methods how to handle.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. So yeah, as you guys can see on the screen, what next? So you can tweet using the hashtag, and as I mentioned earlier, there will be a feedback form that will be sent. So you can fill out your survey, feedback, suggestions, or any questions regarding the session. Um, and yeah, you can contact MuleSoft at meetups@mulesoft.com for ways to improve this program. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the session, that if you guys are interested in giving a speech on any particular topics that you feel exciting to the community, or any unique scenarios that you guys have come across and solved it, we would be very happy to see and hear from you guys. So feel free to reach out to me in LinkedIn. And as I said, I don't know if I shared you my LinkedIn, or you can just search by my name. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for joining the session, and hope you all enjoy your rest of your day. Thank you, Shankar. And before we sign off, the session will be put up in YouTube very shortly, and also I will share the link in the link URL link on LinkedIn as and when it's available. Yep. Thank you, and thank you, Yuresh, for joining as well.
Well, thank you for the session. It's a good one. Just a quick announcement. Now that I took a quick chance here, we might have another one coming up in a couple more weeks. We are working on a POC for securing MuleSoft APIs with Salesforce OpenID Connect. So yeah, once that is all complete, we'll have the announcement made, and yeah, we'll have one more. So please watch out for that.
Sounds good. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for giving me the chance to speak.
I think